No, no, no. Hi everyone. It's Fadi Manawi here and Patrick Fandaro from Visa Franchise. I'm from Visa Place and Aaron and Associates. I'm a U.S. attorney and managing director. We are here today to discuss E2 visas and everything having to do with them. Hopefully, this is going to be super informative for you. We are live on Facebook and YouTube and hopefully we have a good crowd going. We are going to be responding to questions as well. However, we're going to be responding to questions at the end of our presentation. So again, my name is Fadi Manawi. This is Patrick Findaro. And for now, I'm going to take the lead with the spotlight. Okay, so we're discussing E2 visas today. What is an E2? What is an E2 visa? An E2 visa is a non-immigrant category visa type that is used for it is used as a tool to actually get into the U.S. Some people use it when they actually have an investment that's already made in the U.S. or they're planning an investment to be made in the U.S. Not everyone have really business experience within the same space. However, many people do, and that's one of the qualifications that may be looked at when it comes to an E2 visa. So, as I mentioned, it is a non-immigrant category. What that means is that it does not necessarily lead to a green card, but also at the same time, it does not preclude a person from getting a green card. It is available for people from many nationalities. However, there has to be a reciprocal agreement between the person's native country as well as the United States. And this list of countries does change from time to time. Recently, Israel was added to being a treaty country. Therefore, we can now do E2 visas for Israeli citizens. So getting back to the nuts and bolts of what exactly is an E2. An E2 does require a substantial investment in the U.S., which, what does substantial investment mean? A substantial investment can really range from business to business. So, for example, if somebody's setting up a consulting business, as an example, there's not going to be that much that perhaps is needed to actually set up a consulting business. It's not the same as, say, setting up a restaurant where you're going to go and maybe purchase a commercial property or lease a commercial property and purchase all the equipment needed and furniture needed and so forth. So the actual qualification for what's a substantial from a consulting business perspective, say, versus a restaurant, is two totally different amounts that would be required. So substantial investment, we got to check off that box for the nature of that business. We also have to look at whether the business itself includes at-risk funds, right? So what does that really mean? At risk means that there has been some movement made towards that investment. Usually the investment is already made or it's going to be made. It's imminent, and there are ways we can kind of circumnavigate that. But what you can't do is simply transfer funds from a account that might be offshore to a U.S. account and say, well, here you go, I made my investment. That's not good enough. So there has to be more done than that. Then, another important aspect to it is also the marginality of the business. And what that means is there going to be an economic impact made for that business? In other words, is the nature of this business going to be so that you can actually hire people in the U.S., hopefully, versus just being able to just run it yourself and that's it. So those are really, really high overview, three boxes that have to be checked off. And what we do at Visa Place and Aaron and Associates is we do take a look at the different opportunities that may come your way. We do these consultations on a pretty regular basis. There are different different questions that pop up, and we do have a lot of experience when it comes to E2 visas. And I don't want to get into it too much, but there's also, even if you have a business that maybe is overseas in Canada or elsewhere, and you're conducting a lot of business with the United States, there's also something else called an E1 visa, but that's not the purpose of today's discussion. So if there is substantial trade with the US, that's also another opportunity that perhaps you may explore. So again, when it comes to E2s, it's a visa type. It's temporary, but could lead to a green card. It can be, actually, when I say temporary, it's good for up to 5 years, depending on the person's nationality. So it does vary from country to country, but ultimately it could be good for up to 5 years, and it's renewable indefinitely. And I think that's all sort of I want to cover from a high level perspective. I'm sure there's going to be questions as to what the details, other details dealing with the E2. So I'm going to be passing this off to my friend Patrick Findaro here, who will be taking this. He'll be taking this over and discussing with you different business models, franchise models, and so forth that his company deals with.
Fadi, thanks so much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about different opportunities for industries in light of COVID-19. Talk about a few different options in terms of acquiring the E2 visa through a startup, existing business, or franchise, pros and cons on each one. And then we don't think that every business industry will recover the same way. And you're going to see a great divergence in terms of the types of businesses and how they recover. Very quickly on visa franchise, we've been around for the last 5 years. We've helped well over 300 clients from around the world, 58 countries to be exact. We've reviewed over 1,600 businesses, mostly franchises, and less than 5% of the businesses or franchises that we review pass our vetting process. Our approval rate is well over 95%. We've created our clients have created over 2,200 jobs over the past years in the United States, both direct and indirect jobs. In terms of starting a business in the United States or acquiring an existing business, there's a few different options. Many clients like franchising because you have the support from the franchisor. It's an established business model, and it's easier to open up multiple locations. The existing business is also an option, especially for those that value a business that's already operational and already has the financial figures. But be aware that you definitely need to engage an accountant to do a forensic due diligence, as oftentimes businesses that are listed for sale are not, once you start investigating and have an accountant investigate the numbers, they're not always so truthful. Another option would be a new business. It's more entrepreneurial, potential for higher return. However, there's bigger risk. And how we see it, if it's very, very successful and someone buys your business, you lose the visa. And if it's not successful at all and you close the business, you lose the visa. So many of our clients, one of the spouses will do a franchise investment, and then the other spouse starts up their own business, and maybe it only needs $10,000, $20,000 of capital to start that independent business. So those are a few different options. Today, we're going to go more into franchises. Most of our clients prefer franchises as they want a proven model, and they prioritize longevity of the business over a short-term profit or a very high exit when you sell a business. Really important things to look at now in light of COVID-19. Analyzing the profitability of the business, periodic revenues, making sure that the business has high margins, who's the management team from the franchisor side that's going to be providing ongoing support, and making sure that the industry and brand are poised to growth, as well as having strong liquidity. some of the industries. So fast food, but not all fast food chains are the same, especially in light of the current environment, pandemic. Pet care, pet grooming, pet daycare, that's bouncing back a lot faster than boarding, for example. Beauty, hairdressers, barbershops, I know once they opened back up, I was one of the first ones to go in. Those are definitely going to have a sound bounce back. Cleaning, especially on the commercial cleaning side, employees want to know that the office environment they're going to is as cleansly as ever. Real estate property management, we might see, similar to 2009, an increase in renters, which is positive for that industry. Insurance, tax services, you're always going to need it, whether pandemic or not. Education, school reinforcement, and then child care. And then on the health side, urgent care clinics. Lessons from 2008-2009. We had a couple of analysts at Visa Franchise go through all the SBA loan data, and we looked at the charged-off rate, which is basically when the loan's in default, the SBA and the lender don't expect any future payments, and it's essentially in default. In the period of 2008-2009, it was 2 times the amount of defaults for any other period, and we looked across different industries that were most affected, and you can see even over the last 30 years here, the charge-off rate for food and beverage is around 15%. Travel and hospitality, which would be hotels, significantly higher investment, pretty low default rate. And then you have other ones where we say other businesses that could be like dry cleaners, where it's relatively high, as are home services. So that would be like made services to homes instead of to corporations or very small businesses. We expect more of a V-curve recovery for cleaning and maintenance, healthcare services, children's programs, education programs, as well as business services. Business services encompassing tax preparation, insurance, etc. We expect more of a U-curve recovery for food and beverage concepts. And again, it's going to be very different. Do they have outdoor seating? Are they big in delivery, takeout? Health and beauty, and then on the real estate side, Nike swoosh, more for pet care, especially those that are more into the overnight. Travel and hospitality, automotive, more of a Nike swoosh, where their recovery is going to take longer and go well into 2021 and 2022. And then an L curve for retail products and services and fitness centers. Big box fitness centers where you have 100 people working out at the same time, and machines are supposed to be cleaned by the participants or by cleaning staff, but only every 6 hours or once a day. I think it's going to be a while until people feel really comfortable, and that they're going to return to the same level as pre-COVID-19. So yeah, thanks a lot. That's a short presentation I wanted to walk through, and I'm happy to go over any questions together with Fadi at this time.
Thank you, Patrick. Just one thing I wanted to bring up, which I realized I didn't talk about earlier, is with respect to the whole COVID situation and E2 visas. The consulates, for the most part, have been accepting these E2 applications as far as we're experiencing. And it's just a matter of when the interview is going to take place, because that's what typically is building the backlog. It's those the actual queues to get into the consulate and get the interview, which is the last part of the application. So I think we're seeing if there's any questions. All right. Okay. Anything else, Patrick, you'd like to add on your end? Well, I do have a question, Patrick, actually. Sure. This comes up quite often. You know, I do work with some snowbirds that are looking for ways to get into the U.S. on the E2, but they don't necessarily want to go and buy a business and be active in that business. Do you have any solutions for that?
Sure. So we actually have a lot of clients that need what we call operational support. Those clients might have businesses, homes abroad, where they're going to be traveling back and forth, whether it be to Florida, Arizona, California, Texas, and they need a day-to-day manager. And what we do in that situation, many times the franchisor will be able to offer a consulting arrangement where they provide day-to-day management support. And then the E2 visa investor is more the CFO leading the strategy, and they're not going to be there day to day, and that allows them more travel flexibility. And we have opportunities currently available in landscaping, restaurant space, real estate property management, where the franchisor can support the day-to-day operations either through a consulting arrangement or taking a minority stake in that franchise business. And that has worked quite well for our clients that want the flexibility of having the E2 visa for themselves and their family, as well as making a smaller return than if you were going to be managing the business day to day.
Mm-hmm. So if a person, snowbird, let's say, they have perhaps a investment property in the U.S. and they don't want to do the back and forth shuffle between, for example, U.S. and Canada, that is something that they can invest in, not necessarily be involved in the day-to-day, but still get the benefits of what the E2.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So we've had clients invest as low as $70,000 for the E2 visa. Most of the time, it's between 100 and 150K, or 100 to 200,000 if they're going to be involved day to day, and that includes working capital, all the necessary expenses. So they don't have to inject any further capital into the business. But for those clients that need more day-to-day management support, that is when it's going to be a higher investment to cover to have additional cushion for that day-to-day manager. And most of our clients will invest in the 200 to 350,000 range for the businesses that have more operational support. Right. We have limited opportunities given not only do we have to vet the business model, but we also have to do a deep dive on who the operator is, their track record, any litigation against them, bankruptcies, etc. So whether if you want to be an owner operator, say at any given time we have about 80 or 90 opportunities that are well suited for the E2 visa and for the right businessman or businesswoman is a sustainable model and should prove successful. Where for the ones that require operational support, it's about 8, 10 opportunities at a given time.
Right. Yeah. So we have another question, which I think I'll take this one, which is a minimum investment. So the definition of what a substantial investment is when it comes to an E2 visa is not actually defined. So if you look at the regulations, you won't find a minimum amount that's listed. But having done many of these E2 applications, we realize that based on the nature of the business itself, that really determines what the minimum investment should be. So again, going back to my example of a consulting business, that's could be IT consulting, could be any kind of consulting. And if somebody said, well, I'm going to spend, say, $50,000 and this is what I'm going to spend it on, is it suitable? It probably will be suitable. Okay. So, we've done applications at the $50,000 mark, even a little bit less, and they've been successful. But if you're coming in and saying you're going to, open up as my example before suggested, a restaurant or say a car dealership or something, that $50,000 is not going to get you very far. And it's probably not going to be deemed as substantial for the nature of that type of business. Okay. In terms of the visa preparation for an E2, that's really where, that's obviously the meat and potatoes of this application, because it's not enough just to fill out a form and send it off to the consulate. They're not going to approve applications like that. So it has to be an overall application that's filled with all relevant documents. But even some consulates have a limitation as to what you can include to them, or even like a page limitation. So knowing how much what you actually need to include, including usually there's a business plan. You're showing what the source of the investment is. What is the investment? Are you including receipts? And providing everything in a presentable format, including usually there's a submission that talks about your business itself, how you qualify for the E2 visa. It's all encompassing, and that's why either working with a law firm like ours is it's worth its weight in gold, because it is a type of application that we do see on a regular basis, and we'll be happy to speak to you separately as to what your requirements are, and whether you would qualify for an E2 visa. In terms of someone's written, tell us more about an L1 visa. I'm not going to get into those details. That's not what this presentation is about, but I will just give a real, high level overview. An L1 is a intercompany transfer. So if a person was working abroad for a company that also has operations in the US, and they're being transferred to the US operations, that is an L1. Now, it could be an L1A, which is like a senior manager or executive of the company that's being transferred, or it could be somebody that has specialized knowledge within the company that's being transferred. But normally the person would have had to have been working for at least a year in the last 3 years abroad, and they're being transferred. All right. And
I see your question, I guess, on the investment property. If you don't mind, I can take a stab at that, Fadi.
Sure.
So, if you're just going to buy 3 or 4 or 5 properties and call it a property management business, generally those are getting denied for the E2 visa, where maybe 5 years ago, 7 years ago, you could get an E2 visa with managing very few properties. Our clients, on average, if they're doing vacation rentals, will manage anywhere from 20 to 30 properties. If they're doing residential property management, after a 2 to 3 year period, they would be managing over 100 single family homes and apartments for the E2 visa. I know, Alex, you asked earlier about the L1 visa. Again, suggest you arrange a consultation, but you're going to have a lot more jobs, and certain industries like real estate property management are better suited for the E2 visa. And in terms of the minimum investment amounts, from our side, as we've seen over 58 clients from over 58 countries, Canada seems pretty lenient in terms of the substantial investment amount lower limit, where in other countries across Europe and Asia, we've gotten a lot of pushback, and generally the interviews are significantly harder when it's an investment of, say, 80,000, 120,000. But when it passes that 175, 200K level, generally it seems like the process it goes a lot smoother, and it shows a lot more financial commitment. But of course, Fadi can comment more than me that there is no set minimum, and every consulate should follow the same guidelines, but in practice, they seem a little different.
Right, that's correct. So we have another question with respect to the process itself. Do we need to invest first and then appear for interview, or get the application approved and then go find the business? It's a very good question. Once the application for an E2 is submitted, it is actually it's a completed application showing that the investment has already been made. So keeping in mind that the second box that has to be checked off is that the investment is at risk. And if you haven't already made that purchase, or maybe put the money in escrow contingent on maybe the E2 being approved, then the investment has not been made, and it's just basically speculative as to what you're trying to do in the US. So definitely you have to have either the business purchased or the business set up. or at least a roadmap of this is what I plan to do contingent on myself getting an E2 with the investment actually being made? It's a very good question, and there are ways to be a little bit more cautious from a risk perspective that we've helped many clients with. All right. I saw another question as to, what can we do for Indian nationals? And that brings up an important point, going back to who the treaty countries are and who can actually apply for the E2 visa. Indian nationals are not on this list, but we have worked with Indian nationals, particularly those that perhaps have had businesses abroad, where we have helped with like an L1 an L1 visa, including you can even do this for L1 startups in the US. Okay, so if you have a business abroad and you plan on setting up a business in the US, we're not necessarily looking at the E2 because you can't qualify for the E2. One of the qualifications is you're not going to qualify for it. Therefore, an L1, even as L1 as a startup, is definitely one way that we can approach this this problem with a good solution. All right. Any another question I have here is total processing time for an E2 visa. Great question again. Normally, the processing period, I would say from start to finish, including the prep work that's involved, it's usually about 3 months. Okay, it can be a little bit less than that, a little bit more than that. With the whole COVID situation, what we're finding is that because the interviews have been suspended, which is essentially the last part of the application, we are expecting that depending on where you're applying from, some applications are going to take longer than that average 3 months. But again, it really depends on where you're applying from and how busy that consulate is. But to say it's going to normally take, if the conditions were normalized, about 3 months, that would be fair to say. All right. I think that's it. Patrick, do you see anything else?
No, man, we could go on and on. And until we have consultation, we're happy to have an initial one from Visa franchise's side to see if you'd be a good fit for our services, to find and analyze different franchises on your behalf. And then you can also arrange a consultation directly with Visa Place as well on everything related to the Visa side. So Visa franchise is more on the business, finding and analyzing the right franchise for you and your family, and then Visa Place is on the Visa side.
Right. Yep, that makes sense. And we've, I personally referred some clients to Patrick who were very happy with your services, and you likewise, you've sent some clients our way, so that's great. I've never had a problem with Patrick. With respect to other. If you want to take a look at, which countries can qualify for an E2, you can go to our website and find the list is current for E2 and E1 countries. All right, and I think we are wrapping it up here. Thanks for everyone that joined us, both on Facebook and YouTube. If we did not get to your question, I apologize, but you can reach out to us further. And maybe your question deserves a more sort of thorough discussion than what's available on here for now. So again, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, everyone.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks for having me on, Fadi. Take care.